July 14th, 2019. The summer air was heavy in upstate New York. For most, it was just another Sunday. But on Instagram, something horrifying began to spread like wildfire. A grainy, low-lit image appeared on users' timelines, disturbing and violent. A photo of a blood-soaked seat and what looked like a body, lifeless in the back of a car. The caption, chilling. The poster claimed he had just murdered someone. That someone was 17-year-old Bianca Devins, a popular figure among niche online communities. The crime wasn't just brutal, it was broadcast. As people tried to report the photo, others began resharing it. The internet had become a crime scene. Behind the screen, a predator, a so-called friend, maybe more, had turned a teenage girl's life into digital horror. But why? And how did a vulnerable girl from Utica become a name forever associated with one of the most disturbing social media crimes in history? This is the story of Bianca Devins, a rising social media star whose life, dreams, and identity were brutally stolen in a moment of online obsession, jealousy, and calculated violence. Bianca Michelle Devins was born on October 2nd, 2001, in Utica, New York. She was known for her creativity, her wit, and her vibrant online presence. Offline, Bianca was a caring sister, a loving daughter, and a recent high school graduate preparing for her next chapter in life, college. But online, Bianca was something else entirely. She went by usernames like at Eskt and at Beegtfo on platforms like Instagram, Discord, and 4chan. She existed within the world of e-girls, a subculture of aesthetically driven girls who often posted moody selfies, anime-inspired fashion, and edgy, cryptic captions. She had a following, thousands of people who admired her looks, her honesty about mental health, and her hauntingly artistic persona. However, like many teens navigating mental illness and identity, Bianca used the internet as an escape. She suffered from depression, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder. The online world became her sanctuary, but also her greatest risk. In May 2019, Bianca met Brandon Andrew Clark online. At first, it seemed like a friendship. He was 21, she was 17. He admired her, he listened to her. Clark quickly inserted himself into her life, offering what seemed like validation and support. But Brandon was not a stranger to manipulation. His online persona was obsessive and calculated. He monitored her conversations, questioned her loyalties, and demanded exclusivity. Bianca, for her part, made it clear to friends that she didn't see Brandon as a boyfriend, but rather a friend, maybe a fan, who took things too far. Despite red flags, Bianca occasionally hung out with him, partly out of fear, partly out of manipulation, and partly out of her own emotional turbulence. Like many young people navigating toxic dynamics, she struggled to fully detach. By July, Bianca was looking forward to a concert in New York City. She was meeting an online acquaintance she had been talking to romantically. Brandon offered to drive her. It would be a decision that sealed her fate. On July 13th, Bianca and Brandon drove to Queens to attend a Nicole Dollanganger concert, an artist Bianca deeply admired for her haunting music and aesthetic. But the night took a dark turn. At the venue, Bianca met up with another male friend, someone she had been developing feelings for. Brandon became visibly upset. Witnesses recalled him pacing, watching Bianca closely, stewing in jealousy. By the end of the night, tension filled the car ride home. On the drive back, an argument erupted. Texts later recovered by police revealed Brandon felt betrayed. Bianca, exhausted, told him she didn't want a relationship. She reiterated that they were friends. It was a boundary he refused to accept. As the sun began to rise on July 14th, the car pulled over near a dead-end street in Utica. What happened next was brutal. Police later confirmed that Brandon Clark slit Bianca's throat with a large knife while she sat in the car. He then took a photo of her lifeless body, covered in blood, her eyes open, her neck slashed. But the horror didn't end there. He posted the image to Discord and Instagram with captions like "I'm sorry Bianca, and here comes hell. It's redemption, right?" He even tagged Bianca's Instagram account so her followers would see it. For several hours, the images remained online before being removed. But by then, they had spread across Reddit, Twitter, and even Gore forums. As the photo circulated, people began calling the police. Others called it a hoax, refusing to believe it was real. The digital space had become detached from humanity, just another piece of content. Brandon, meanwhile, attempted suicide by stabbing himself in the neck and laying on a tarp next to Bianca's body, live streaming parts of the aftermath. When police arrived, he was still alive, and would eventually be arrested at the scene. The crime shocked the nation, not just for its brutality, but for how it was committed and publicized. Bianca's family was devastated. Her younger sister, Olivia, had to see the photos online before they were taken down. Her mother, Bianca Devins, was harassed by online trolls who reposted the photos and made jokes about her daughter's death. The internet turned from a community into a weapon. Supporters of Brandon Clark began defending him, creating sympathy pages, claiming he was driven to commit the crime. These same people began cyberbullying Bianca's family, accusing her of being manipulative or deserving it. It exposed an ugly truth. Online violence doesn't stop when the crime ends. It multiplies through reposts, retweets, and algorithms. Brandon Clark was charged with second-degree murder. In February 2020, he pleaded guilty, trying to avoid a trial. But months later, he attempted to withdraw his plea, claiming he had been manipulated. His efforts failed. In March 2021, Clark was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, with no chance of parole before serving the full sentence. But justice in the courtroom couldn't undo the pain Bianca's family endured, or the images that still lurk in corners of the web. Her family, in the face of overwhelming grief, began advocating for legislative change. They helped push for Bianca's Law, a proposed bill that would hold social media companies accountable for not quickly removing violent content. It's part of a growing movement to protect victims from posthumous online abuse. Bianca's story isn't just about a murder. It's about the dangers of parasocial relationships, obsessive fandoms, and the way the internet blurs reality. She was targeted because she had an audience, because she was honest about her emotions, and because someone believed her attention equaled ownership. It's a cautionary tale of how social media can give predators access, while making it harder for victims to be taken seriously. Clark didn't just murder Bianca. He tried to immortalize his crime through social media, reducing her to a viral spectacle. Bianca Devins was more than a headline. She was a young woman who loved music, fashion, anime, and her family. She struggled, but she was fighting, applying to college, seeking therapy, building a life. She was just 17. Her life was stolen in an act of monstrous violence, but her legacy can be something more. Her story is now a wake-up call to protect our children online, to educate others about the signs of coercive control, and to demand platforms do better. Let her name be remembered for who she was, not how she died. To understand the brutality of Bianca's murder, investigators and psychologists looked into the background of Brandon Clark. Who was this man who so calmly planned and documented such a horrifying act? Born in 1997, Brandon had a turbulent upbringing. His father was reportedly abusive, and Brandon witnessed domestic violence throughout his childhood. As a teenager, he began showing signs of control issues, obsessive behavior, and narcissism. But he also knew how to hide it. Online, Brandon played the part of the attentive friend. In real life, he was possessive, jealous, and increasingly manipulative. Clark was known to lurk on platforms like Discord, 4chan, and incel forums, spaces where male entitlement often thrives unchecked. These were echo chambers where violence against women was normalized, even encouraged. To some, Bianca was a tease for rejecting him. To Clark, she was someone he believed he owned. The night of the murder wasn't a spontaneous act of rage. It was a calculated performance. The knife, the tarp, the camera, it was all prepared in advance. Clark wanted to be seen. He wanted to go viral. In his twisted mind, killing Bianca was a way to claim power and to be remembered. What happened after Bianca's murder wasn't just a tragedy. It was a technological failure. Instagram, Discord, and other platforms were slow to react. Users reported the photo over and over, but it remained live for hours. Some algorithms even boosted it, showing it to more people due to high engagement. The image was reshared in private chat rooms, gore forums, and incel communities. It trended before it was deleted. Even worse, some users encouraged the violence. Others used it to gain followers, repackaging her murder into content. On TikTok, some created montage videos of Bianca's photos, mixing her selfies with crime scene images for shock value. Bianca's mother, Bianca Devins, said it best in an interview. "My daughter was murdered again and again every time someone reposted that image." The internet failed Bianca. It rewarded shock. It silenced decency. And even now, years later, images of that morning still circulate on the dark web. Her final moments stolen, reproposed, and used without consent. When Clark was brought to trial, the courtroom was filled with tension. Bianca's family sat through every hearing, forced to relive the nightmare. Prosecutors described the crime as cold and calculated. Clark's defense tried to suggest mental illness, remorse, and even provocation. But the evidence was overwhelming. Clark had recorded video footage before and after the crime. In one clip, he smiled into the camera as he cleaned the blood from his knife. In another, he staged the suicide attempt. Every act was choreographed for attention. In a rare courtroom moment, Clark addressed the judge, saying, "I hate myself for what I did. I loved Bianca." But the family didn't buy it. As her mother later said, if he loved her, she'd still be alive. The judge, unmoved, sentenced Brandon Clark to 25 years to life without parole. Justice was served, but peace was far from reach. The trauma didn't end with the trial. Bianca's family endured months of cyberterrorism. Trolls sent crime scene photos to Bianca's sister. Anonymous accounts posted her image to online forums. Each time, the Devins family had to relive the moment. Bianca's death wasn't private, it was public. And the internet made sure it stayed that way. In response, her family turned their grief into action. Kim Devins began working with New York lawmakers to propose Bianca's Law, a bill that would require social media companies with over 100,000 users to create dedicated teams to identify and remove violent content quickly. The law would also increase penalties for those who intentionally share graphic images of homicide victims. "We don't want another family to go through what we did," Kim told reporters. Though the bill stalled in Congress, the movement gained momentum. Bianca's story became a case study in digital ethics, taught in universities, debated in tech forums, and cited by advocacy groups calling for algorithm reform. Bianca wasn't a celebrity. She wasn't an influencer in the traditional sense. But she was seen. And in a digital world, that's often enough. Teen girls who share selfies online are often targeted, not just by predators, but by obsessive fans. The phenomenon of e-girl worship has turned everyday teenagers into fantasy objects. For some, the line between admiration and ownership disappears. Clark didn't just kill Bianca. He killed the version of her that he couldn't have. And the terrifying truth is, he's not the only one who thinks that way. Bianca's story joins a long list of women harmed by men who couldn't accept rejection. But unlike most cases, hers played out on a public stage, unfiltered and unmoderated. It's a warning to us all that fame without protection is dangerous, that clicks can kill, and that the internet doesn't just amplify beauty, it amplifies obsession. Today, Bianca's face still appears online. Her art, her photography, her messages of hope for those struggling with mental illness, all of it remains. But so do the images of her death. That's the tragedy of digital permanence. Victims don't get to choose their legacy. Her family continues to fight for her dignity. They've created foundations, spoken at public events, and educated others on the danger of glorifying violence online. They ask only one thing, to remember Bianca as she was, not how she died. She was smart, funny, creative. She was more than a victim, her mother says. Bianca's story forces us to ask hard questions. How much power do we give strangers online? Why do social media platforms reward trauma with virality? And how many more girls have to die before we change the system? We live in a world where anyone can become a target, where a rejection can be fatal, and where a murder can be liked, shared, and monetized. Bianca's story should be the turning point, not just for tech companies, but for all of us. It's time we shift from passively watching horror unfold to actively protecting the vulnerable, from boosting shock value to embracing empathy, from silence to outrage. Bianca's story is not just true crime. It's a cultural alarm bell. As viewers, we owe it to her, and to victims like her, to speak out, to stop sharing graphic content, to hold platforms accountable, and to treat every face we see online not as a meme, a fantasy, or a character, but as a human being with a story, with dreams, and with people who love them. So what can you do? White heavy checkmark, stop the spread. Never share images or videos of victims, report them immediately. White heavy checkmark, speak up. If you see someone being harassed online, don't stay silent. Support them. White heavy checkmark, educate yourself. Learn about digital abuse, parasocial dynamics, and online safety. White heavy checkmark, support Bianca's legacy. Share her story responsibly, with dignity, and without exploitation. Bianca Devins should be alive today. She should be in college, taking photos, going to concerts, laughing with friends. She should be posting selfies, not being remembered for one. But even in death, her story is a light in the darkness, a reminder of the cost of obsession, the failures of our systems, and the power of resilience. Let us remember her not as a crime, but as a warning, a change maker, and above all, as the beautiful, complex soul she truly was. Candle Hash in loving memory of Bianca Devins. October 2nd, 2001 to July 14th, 2019.